everybody. Welcome to the Year in Review 2022 with your friends. Your friends, here are your friends talking about behavior analysis, your favorite behavior analytic podcast friends. They're all here. We've got myself, Robert Perry Cruz.
And me, Jackie, because it's still 2022.
And it's me, Diana.
And you guys are stuck with me also, Matt Cicoria.
Yeah.
That's why I said all of the behavior analytic podcasts, but I think there's some other ones too.
There's plenty. There's lots of good ones out there.
So the OGs are rocking the house.
Yes.
Not the original, not all of them though.
No, that's true. We're the longest running ones. I think whenever it starts getting into the multi-year club, maybe we'll bring them in. Oh, and we've got another guest.
Say what we are podcast we're representing here.
No, I'm sure that everyone just decided to download this one. Like, what could this be? I don't even know.
This is random
end of year.
Randomly.
I've never heard of behavior analysis, but the end of year one is the best one. Oh, and we have another behavior analysis podcast friend. Who else is here?
Alan Haberman, book club guy.
Book club guy, yay!
He's a book club guy.
So I guess we should tell people if they're like, this is the first episode I've ever heard of either ABA Inside Track or Behavioral Observations. And I thought the end of year 2020 review would be the best place to start. But this is our fifth, I can't remember how many years, at least fourth year we think we've done this. To end and wrap up.
I don't know. I'd have to. I meant to look, and I totally spaced on it.
Information we could have found and chose not to find.
That's right. Other things filled the void.
Very true. Yes, but this is our wrap up of behavior analysis in the year, where we sort of talk about a couple things that happened this year, and then do a couple questions. We had some listeners to the shows send in things, some questions they wanted to ask us, so we'll discuss those, and just kind of a quick way to end the year for all the listeners out there of the shows, because we've both been doing that. How long? I don't even know how long. We were all getting into
6.5 years.
Yeah, 6.5 years.
I'll roll 7 years in February.
And then I think we're a little after in like March. Like literally, it's shocking.
That's right. I got a couple weeks on you guys. But,
I know.
But who's really counting, right?
No, I can't believe that happened though. Like, what are the odds?
You guys like, Matt, you're the only one who brings that up.
Shut up, Matt.
Just kidding.
Yes, but we've been doing this a long time. We've been doing this a number of years now. So let's kind of get into what's going on with the year of 2022. If I remember correctly, 2021, when we did this, everyone was tired. And I think we talked about nothing of import and just shot the breeze for an hour or so.
Yeah,
that's exactly what happened. Yeah.
We drank booze and we were all tired.
Yeah, that sounds like 2021. I don't know, 2022. Do we feel more motivated with like related to the field questions and everything?
I think we got a good agenda to go through. And I know we were on a limited amount of time, and that might make our, I guess, run through of these topics more spirited, perhaps. So I'm excited to get into it.
Beautiful.
I'm certainly less tired than last year.
Great.
That's good. I don't remember being tired so much as just sort of like energy drained, I think was the big thing. Last year we did this.
Let's do it.
All right. I smartly, remembering we were going to do this because it's been 4 or 5 years of doing this, started noting a few things that did happen this year. And unfortunately, some of them were very sad. And then some of them were just sort of, these are things that happened this year. So I guess we'll start with the sad was just the passings, which we've tried to do every year, is to share some passings. I think one of the bigger ones was Beth Seltzer-Azeroff passed away in February of 2022. So almost a year ago now. She was 92.
I hope I live till 92.
It's not the worst age to be.
That's a good run.
Yeah.
I'm like impressed. People are like 90. I could go for 100, but I would settle with 92.
Yeah. But she is one of kind of like the earlier like pioneer female behavior analysts. She wrote a lot of books on education, OBM. There was a physics book that her second husband wrote, apparently called Physics Over Easy, Breakfast with Beth and Physics. So apparently she had a book written about her discussions of physics with her husband.
That's awesome.
I know, not related to behavior analysis, but when I was just sort of looking into it a little bit, yeah. So, and there was a nice eulogy by Andy Bondy in Operance. I think it must have been like the summer or fall Operance or something. It was a very nice eulogy for her.
Well, I missed that one. I'll have to go dig that up.
I think it was in there. I could have sworn it was Operance, and then I could not find the issue, and my link had died, so I couldn't find where I'd saved that one. But believe that's where I saw it originally.
I'm sure someone will send it to us.
You skipped part of your line here, which I think is important to note, that Beth Solzer-Azeroff was the first female president of ABAI and was also a co-founder of Babbitt. So for those of us here in New England, that's our, tried and true behavior analytic conference. And I just think it's nice to note early female behavior analysts, because there weren't very many that dated back to this time period in which she was doing her early work. And it was a real boys club out there. So it's nice to see strong female role models in the field.
Yeah,
okay, now you can
agree
keep
more.
talking. Yeah. Or maybe why don't you let Matt talk about that?
Okay, of reading the list of people who passed away. I mean, I felt bad. People like, now what's your turn to talk about something
That's
sad?
right. Let me read this next line. No, this is Yeah, well, let me try to
or not.
As you can see, we spent a lot of time putting this
We're
together.
preppers.
A lot of prep.
Sorry.
We made a list. We shouldn't.
Well, go for it, Rob.
Okay. I mean, and this one was not a name I knew too well, but I think I was at a webinar and someone mentioned Dale Brethauer, who was a bigger name in the OBM field, done lots of systems, or worked on systems, written some OBM related papers, sort of well regarded to this day, had passed away. But again, I'm not an OBM person. I just had noted it from someone who was big into OBM, so it seemed worth mentioning. So OBM folk out there, you may know this name more. And then a little bit closer to home, Tamika Meadows had passed away, and we just recorded a preview episode that's coming out next week where we went into a little bit more depth as to who Tamika was. But she was a very prominent blogger, very big proponent and speaker of ABA. She was all set to speak as like the
she was an invited
speaker at BABA this year, and it was very sudden.
Next year
in June, but we were very sad to hear about that. Were both of you, had you got a chance to meet Tamika? I'm not, I know she knew a lot of folks, but
no, I didn't have the pleasure, unfortunately.
Yeah, but
just through this podcast and others that I'd heard her and some of her other content.
So it was unfortunate passing, but at least we have a lot. She was a great proponent for the field of behavior analysis. So, and her work is still out there, in terms of her blog, or I Love ABA blog. So people can definitely check that out and see what an amazing person she was. The only other kind of factoid things, there were some changings of the guard for folks who are always up on who's the editor-in-chief of Java. We had,
that's what I was looking up.
We had another one. Sorry, Diana, not late breaking to the world.
Not that. I just had one other that I wanted to add here. So David Jermolowitz passed away earlier this year, and he was relatively young and also well-known and well-respected researcher in our field. He worked at WVU, and a lot of people were really saddened and surprised by his passing. So we wanted to note that as well.
Mm-hmm. So again, like some changing of the guard. If you've been keeping up with, who's the editor of your favorite journals, probably Java in our field, right? Linda LeBlanc her time as the editor of Java is coming to a close, and John Barrero is going to be taking over.
I love John Barrero. I have a super crush on him. So if he's listening, he'll just know that every time I say to him, he's like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Oh my God, you're so cute."
So for your next Java issues, when you see him in person at a conference, you're like, "Could you sign all of these for me?" With like hearts and kisses all around the edge.
I just think he's really nice. He just looks really friendly. I want to be his friend. I don't have romantic crush, but I have like a fangirl crush.
Professional admiration.
Yeah.
I had a chance to have lunch with him at ABAI in Boston, and everyone who I asked about him prior to that was like, "Oh, he's the nicest dude in the world." And people, I think, are inclined to be charitable and say nice things about colleagues and whatnot. And so, not that I wasn't skeptical of those observations.
You're like, "Oh yeah, right, John Barrero's not nice."
No, he's a jerk. No, it just turned out to be really true. It's like the first time I went to Chicago and I was like, "Wow, it's really windy." It actually is windy here. It's the same thing. It's like, man, this is the nicest dude in the world. We had a lovely conversation, and we're going to continue doing the Inside Java series podcast with him at the helm as editor-in-chief. And so I am very much looking forward to that.
Matt, if you have lunch with John Barrero again, I will not be sad if you invite me.
Okay. Duly noted.
Just putting it out there. I'll be like,
not subtle.
No, he's just a gem for sure. He's just a super nice guy.
Well, we'll see what comes of that. I think this is probably the first time I mostly noted it because I saw Linda LeBlanc doing a was talking and then mentioned it. Was the only reason I noted it. But I'm trying to think like what, I think this might be the first time I really noticed, like, was there a change in Java content with Linda LeBlanc jumping on? And I guess there was some, but again, how much of it is because the field is changing? It's just the changing of the field. Like that's what it's going to be.
The variable.
I would say I would make two quick observations. One is Linda, I think her contribution, the editorship is that the big idea paper. So her challenge was for people to write more expansive papers that are more discussion and based, conceptually based, taking risks, if you will. I don't want to put words in her mouth, but that's the general idea. Mm-hmm. And it's not that there weren't these types of papers before, but she made an emphasis in her editorship to encourage people to submit papers of that variety. And so there were a lot of good ones as a result of that, for sure. So I think that would be one thing. I think another thing of note, and I think this will only be meaningful to people who are print subscribers to Java. But over the last 5 years, I think the actual thickness of the issues has almost tripled, if not quadrupled, in width. And I want to say there's like a secret deal with bookshelf companies or something like that, because I am like these things are stacking up in weird places because I don't have room on my bookshelf.
You're going to be that hoarder guy when you die. People are going to come in and they're going to be like sitting on your Java stacks.
Well, we found my mother's basement flooded a few years ago. We found all these old journals, and she had like Jabas from like 68, and she must have had like probably 10 years of Java, like in one of those sort of like rectangular Tupperware kind of big containers, right? And yeah, I think if you tried to put 10 years of the Linda LeBlanc edited sized one, like you would need to get one of those like industrial, like a crate perhaps, to get them all in there.
Yeah, you need like a Rubbermaid, tub of some sort. Yeah,
it's a lot.
To what extent? I mean, I think that started happening under Greg Handley's tenure because I believe he was the editor-in-chief prior to that. So I think it was trending in a bigger direction, but. Yeah, they got to be like 2 inches thick.
Oh, they're super big.
Rob gets the print one.
Oh, yeah. Looky here. I just happen to have one. This is winter 2022.
That's not even the biggest one, though. I mean, I feel like that one's like one of the smaller size.
This is a slim version of it, and it's at least an inch thick. So
I see a journal that big. I throw it back these days. It's not big enough. I want even bigger.
Okay.
There's laws about having journals that little.
Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing that up. Because I thought it's like Matt's gonna have two like really salient points about Linda in the journal, but I'm gonna keep it in the pocket as the joke third one, and they got really big too. But thank you for adding that. I had your back though, no matter.
I beat you to it, yeah.
And then finally, I think in terms of like some changes before we get to some more like thematic changes, Tyra Sellers is now the president of APBA because Gina Green retired.
She got a ukulele. I love
Did she retire then got a ukulele, or she started playing the ukulele and said, "I don't have time for both"?
Oh, ukulele! I just when I saw that, I was like, "Oh, Gina, I want to come to your ukulele show."
So nice.
She's gonna have a YouTube channel,
right?
That'd be awesome.
Gina and the Yuki. I know.
Let's workshop that title for Gina first, shall we?
I'll tell her. I already told her.
Okay.
I texted her.
Congratulations, Gina, if you're listening to this. Well deserved. Oh my gosh, yeah. So many accomplishments. Too many to list. Absolutely. Here. We'd be here all day.
Yeah.
Trying to list out the achievements that she's made in the field, APBA, and much beyond that as well. And
congrats to Tyra Sellers.
Yeah.
That is a big job, and I have no doubt that she will be
very
fantastic in that role.
And, well suited to it for sure.
Yeah.
I can only say that we had her on last December.
Tyra?
Yeah, and she was talking about the new things that were happening. She didn't tell us. She's like, but there are new things in our life. And I'm always like, what are they? But she didn't tell us.
Yes.
And then, so I'm wondering if this was percolating or if it was just a consulting job. But
Gina heard what the gift was when she finally retired and was like, I'm going to speed that up.
Yeah.
Get that you.
Yeah.
But then when I found that out, when I saw it on the internets, on the World Wide Webs.
I don't think people will say that anymore.
You know what? Doesn't matter. I'm going to bring it back. I was like, ooh, maybe that was it. Because I have still been thinking about it.
Me too. Yep.
Because I'm nosy as all get out.
Those are fun. It's fun to hear about things like that. I think it's kind of fun to hear those changes.
In our work, when you retire, they give you a lamp.
Just hilarious.
At Regis?
Yeah, you get a Regis lamp.
A lamp.
Ooh.
I love lamp.
I don't know what that means.
It's from Anchorman.
I know, but I never understood it.
Did you see the movie?
Yeah, but I might have fallen asleep.
Okay.
No.
Maybe I'll watch it again. Anyway.
Yeah, so I think a ukulele would be better.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, totally.
Matt, do you guys, Matt or Al, do you have anything coming up for when you retire that you know of? Has anyone told you the secret retirement gift you'll be getting?
I've been self-employed for 15 years, so I think any gift is the gift. I'll put in quotes because I'll be giving it to myself, and I haven't really identified what that would be. So, retirement, even though I'm an older BCBA, I guess by statistical standards, retirement still a long way off from
same
where I am. So
sad.
I mean, I got 30, 40 years before I retire, so that's not really on my brain.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to keep it in the back. You never know.
Yeah, I'm like lucky. I'm like thinking about what I'm going to make for dinner later. That's like my long-term forecasting, right?
Yeah.
So
I have a friend that just retired. He's like 41.
Was he like a tech billionaire or something?
I don't remember what he is, but he does something. Not anymore. Now he does nothing.
Well, I wish I knew what that job was. But retirement at 41 sounds great.
But then he's like, what do I do? Because everyone
live the rest of your life.
Right? So he's like just bored.
Oh, I wouldn't be bored.
Oh, let's all shed a tear.
Wow. No problem.
No. So that is the epitome of a first world problem. So hey, one of the things we did with this year in review is submitted some questions from the audience. And we got some late responses, but some really good questions from the interwebs.
You mean the World Wide Web, Matt?
Yeah, the www.internet.com.
www.questions.com. We said.
I'll interject just real quick. I did check. This is the 5th year.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Someone's paying attention. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so we did it. We have quite a few questions, and they're all over the place. So I'm happy to take a stab at these.
Go for it, man. Yeah.
How about I ask them, then we all can kind of chime in. So I'm going to start with a fun one. This is a topic near and dear to my heart, and it's from Ryan O'Donnell of the Daily BA and other, I guess, internet properties, if you will. And he says, do you prefer New England style or West Coast style IPA? Or I think he's saying, what's the best? What's better? What's superior, the New England style or West Coast style IPA? And, to me, to ask the question is to answer it, right? Mm-hmm. So this really, I'm going to go out on the limb here and just say, like, this is a pretty new, Alan, I don't know where you hail from, but the four of us here are in New England, based out of New England. And so I'm just going to say, I'm pretty biased. I think some of the best beers in the world are made in Maine and Vermont. And there's a couple of really great breweries in Massachusetts and New York and New Jersey. Mm-hmm. My home state of New Hampshire, for some reason, we have a couple here and there, but the density of great breweries is pretty dense in places like Portland, Maine, and other places like that. So I'm going to go East Coast beers for sure. Although I will I will have to just editorialize here a little bit. I will say that the West Coast pale ales of the 90s really, I guess, ushered into the era of craft beer renaissance, if you will.
The Renaissance.
Yes, the Renaissance. And so I think if it wasn't for beers like Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, Stone, Firestone Walker, Anchor Steam, and so on and so forth, those are.
Did you say Mac and Jack?
Mac and Jack.
Oh, Mac and Jack is an amazing West Coast beer.
Yep. Oh, I'm sure people on the West Coast are probably screaming at us right now.
Yeah, they're like,
you don't know what you're talking about.
It's not that easy to get them here. And to be honest, it's like you've got so many that are like made in New England. It's like, well, I'm probably going to pick those.
We are assuming with this question that IPAs are good to start with.
Yeah, I was gonna answer sour.
I would like to challenge that assumption.
My answer is sour
because I think that they are gross.
Outside the box with that answer.
Yeah, my answer is all sours.
That's a hot take if there ever was one.
I just, as transplant to Wisconsin the last couple of years, I have to say, what's this East Coast, West Coast stuff? Wisconsin is supposed to be the home of good beer. Funnily enough, I don't really like beer that much of any kind. So like what's the best beer? Like, let's go with some Belgian beers, like Belgian, like fruit sours.
Like a Spencer's Trappist?
No, like Lindemans, like their fruit sour beers are, where they throw in fresh fruit in the last stage of fermentation. I don't like beer otherwise, so I'm the wrong person to ask and the wrong person to move to Wisconsin, the most alcohol appreciative state in the Union.
I wonder if they like fondue, since that involves cheese and beer.
Yeah, I mean, cheese, beer, and brats is like the holy trinity here, from what I understand. So,
okay.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Ryan, thanks for that fun question.
So the answer is sours.
I guess the answer was sours.
regardless of where it's made, right?
It was a twist. It was a twist on the question.
I see. All right. So he also more seriously asked, what are some of the most downloaded topics of the past few years on each respective podcast? And he's like, I'm not looking for authors per se, but more so topics. What are some popular topics that you guys have covered? So, what would you guys say in terms of your show in 2022? What were some of the shows that were well received amongst your audience?
Well, Diana usually looks at that data, but as I asked her that question, she informed me, well, I lost some of it when I transferred the files over, and I did not have time to look on Libsyn.
Just kind of go shoot from the hip here. What were some of the ones you got the most feedback from?
I will say that
engagement over.
We did an episode on facilitated communication, and we did get, a lot. Like, we got a lot more emails than we usually do. I mean, again, they were all related to the topic, but like we had someone email us. We talked a lot about the Prisoners of Silence documentary from the 90s, and we actually had someone email us who said, I was one of the facilitators. I was like part of that. I wasn't in the documentary because there was like some job pressure to not sign the release or whatever, but actually was like performing it, had been a part of sort of the early investigation related to it. So that was pretty cool.
The conclusion of that, it was, not really.
Yes. They felt that. I mean, we sort of hypothesized, people must have felt bad, or a lot of people in the documentary seemed like they felt really bad about it. And it was such a tragedy. And yes, and they said they still talk and share about facilitated communication and the harm, and they're still shocked as anyone that it still just keeps coming back and never dies. So I know that one got a lot of responses. I don't know offhand if it was like most downloaded or anything like that.
Right. Well, I can tell you historically, our episode on toilet training continues to be a very popular one. Anything related to supervision is always popular because people are need to learn about that topic. And then I think that episodes that we've done related to services in schools and assessments seem to me to be areas that people are really looking for additional information on. So we have one on FBAs, we have one on the essentials for living, we have one on positive behavioral sports. We have the episode that you came on and did on school consulting. I think those are actually
the same guy. He showed up. Yeah.
I think he works independently.
I was going to say either
retirement gift,
either the supervision episode or our conversion theory episode must have done very well based on my communication with Diane recently about CEU and everything, because that was a noticeable uptake in like sort of.
Yeah, a lot. Those were very popular.
Yeah.
That episode with Dr. Sarah Campo and Dr. Matt.
Campanetti or something like that.
Yeah.
Sorry if you're listening.
Let me try. You want me to try that again?
Well, no, we got it. No. Yes. Get
Nailed it. Capriati.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dr. Matt Capriati. Everyone who has given us any feedback on that spoke highly of it. How about you, Matt?
I had a couple that were noteworthy, and I guess I would say, to answer Ryan's question directly, it's the shows. I'm sure it's the same for you guys. They're always accumulating downloads.
Right.
So like something released in January 1st is going to have more downloads than, something that's released in November 1st. Right. So I tried to look at the first, month or so of downloads, and I would say a couple different things. One is the trauma informed episode I did. It was an Inside Java episode with Deethan Rajaraman.
Mm-hmm.
So D2 came on. He's been on a couple of times, and you guys know him. He's just a great guy. He's fun to talk to, and is just an excellent science communicator. And so that was a really, really well received episode. Why Your Behavior Plan Stinks, with Meryl Winston. That one was fun.
Matt, you went to the Stone Soup, right? I could have sworn I saw but he did a similar.
Yep.
Was it there? Was it? I saw.
Yeah.
It was a Stone Soup. Okay, I was going to say. I was like, that sounds so familiar. Yeah, I thought that was very interesting. I got his.
So,
did you read his
hilarious
book? The his Adventures in Special Education. Have you read that?
I don't have it. No,
I don't either. I put it on my wish list, but it was a little expensive, so I was like, I'll wait on that one. I got a whole stack that I keep buying and then have not gotten to. So
yeah,
but it's maybe. I think
someday. If I read the book, I would hear it in Meryl's voice. That'd be the funny, But Meryl and I have become friends through the podcast. And we.
Oh yeah, he's been on your show several times. Yeah.
Yeah. We talk all the time in addition to that too. Nice. So I think if I read anything, I'm sorry.
I just sang besties.
Yeah. So anytime I read something he's written, I imagine it in his voice. It's kind of weird, but funny.
I'm excited all the time, Matt, when you're talking. Yes, he's got 100%. like a Lewis Black kind of sort of just like comedic timing.
You see is what you get. Okay. Yeah, what you see is what you get. There's no playing for the camera or microphone or whatever. That is Meryl 24/7. The preference for contingent reinforcement episode with Dr. Holly Gover, that was very well received.
Nice. We're replicating her study right now.
Ooh.
Yeah, she knows.
It's a secret. Don't tell her.
We told her.
Nice. Oh, well, we'll have to. I can't wait to hear how that goes. And then the ethics and punishment episode I recently did with our mutual many-time guest Matt Broadhead.
Nice. So Sir Matthew Broadhead.
That's right. That's right. So that one went over really well. And actually, I got a lot of emails from like people in academia saying, "Well, it's like a lot of like actually."
Right.
And there was, because we were speaking so extemporaneously, and whenever you do that, you run the risk of making a slight error here and there. And so I actually have Tim Hackenberg coming on the show to clean up an error that I made when I was talking.
Nice. Yeah.
So that I'm looking forward to that. So that's going to be
great
fun.
And not intimidating at all.
I mean, Matt, and you'll and Alan, you know this a little bit too, and I think we all know this. When you produce as much content as one has to produce to have a podcast that sort of develops a listenership, the odds that you're not going to say something that's kind of like a little off or a slight error or like, is easy to take out of context, it's zero, because you never get to stop talking. That's like the new media thing. You're going to write a paper, people will talk about it, but you spent years working on that paper and crafting every little bit. You don't quite get that same timeline for podcasts. And people
still make mistakes when they do that too. But it's the law of large numbers. You roll that dice a number of times, and it's gonna come up not in your favor. So the good part about that is that we're going to get a chance to explore. We're going to talk about token. I made it some just off the cuff comment about token economies, and so we're going to delve into that. And that, nice. Which by the way, recall that episode that you guys did. I don't know if it was in 2022 or in 2021, but you guys
2021 Jason Barre's token economy was so good.
Oh my gosh, that was. I think I texted you, Jackie. I was like,
you did. We were texting after. I'm like, yes, mind blown.
Yeah,
this is awesome.
He's a really good guest.
Yeah, that was in 2021, but that was real. That
was so good. That was so good. So so lots more to get into on token economies. So I'm looking forward to getting schooled a little bit on that. So
my eyes were wide for days after.
Those were 4 shows that were I think particularly noteworthy.
Oh, now I'm going to go back and listen. Oh, sorry. Now I'm going to go back and listen to your and Matt Broadhead's episode to see where you went wrong. Then I'll text you if I find it.
It was a fun episode, and again, Matt's another one of those people that I've just gotten to know really well through the podcast, and we talk, pretty frequently as well. And so it was one of those things. It was more conversational than like question answer.
Yeah.
So
the other nice thing about podcasts, you're just going to get to do another one. So you make a mistake, great. You do the follow up, right?
Indeed. All right. Okay, we got another question here. This one came in from Instagram. From spec_educate, evidence based on social stories. I think there are 16 or 17 reviews done by now. Pretty clear that social stories effectiveness is not there for various reasons. So why are they so prevalent as a strategy to support individuals with ASD?
I want to answer this one.
Okay. Go ahead.
Because I've been thinking about it. Because I'm doing some clinical work now. Sadly for me, because I don't really want to, but I'm doing it. And everyone loves social stories so much, I think, for a variety of reasons. I think the first being is that they are very easy, right? They are easy and that they lay the groundwork. And what the research suggests is that social stories alone are not effective. But social stories is part of a treatment package where you have some role play and feedback and modeling the skills you want, reinforcement, right? Then they can be effective as part of a treatment package, even though alone they are not effective, right? They're probably just the instruction paper if you're doing like a BST.
Yeah.
Right? But people love social stories because
it's a checklist, but it's beautiful to look at.
Yeah. But I think, I mean, almost all the kids that I consult with right now have some sort of social story, and I didn't put them in there, but they're there. And, when I talk about removing them because they don't have effectiveness by themselves, like parents get upset. They have like an unnatural love for social stories, I think, because it's something that they can do at home that's easy, that they can practice. And they're like, we all
response
need to know.
efforts low, social validity
response
is high.
efforts low. And so I think it's really about making sure that those social stories are part of a bigger treatment package and not just being like, I'm going to fix this problem by throwing a social story at them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And my take on that is that, the things that are doing the heavy lifting probably are the rehearsal,
else.
the role play, the feedback, etc.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's a great explanation. So
And
thank you,
people love them.
spec_educate for sending that story in.
Thank you.
Going back to Matt Broadhead. Oh, sorry, Alan. But going back to Matt Broadhead, I feel like in the chain of working with others, social stories is in that part where it's like, do you really need to get up and scream about there's not an evidence base for this? Or can you just sort of turn into the skid and be like, social story, that's a great step one. And then here are all the other things we should also be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you're not militantly opposed to them, which is part of our...
I love a good story.
I feel like that's part of our issue in our field is that then we come down so hard on something like that. Yeah. Alan, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, having done at some autism conference, actually met Carol Gray and did her like little fidelity checklist on what a good social story is. A lot of it just comes down to incorporates things that we say, like state what the expected behavior is, rather than saying like, oh, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do this. Like, don't incorporate shame-based tactics, which if you look at so many social stories, that's far too common. But when they're executed right, I think it's more that they give the adults the language rather than like helping the kid of just like, we have, telling people what to expect. I mean, that's how I've always sort of felt about using them.
So that brings up a good point, Alan, because one of the things I do see, so if the learner has to have the language skills to appreciate the elements of the story, right? The sequence of events, the role of the contingencies. So what I see from time to time is people using social stories with individuals who aren't even close to having the language skills to be able to appreciate whatever the content of the social stories. And you might be better off using things like task analyses and or other sort of chaining, shaping, blah blah blah. All the kind of boring old stuff that we know that works. So that's, I don't know.
True.
That's my take on that. So if it's being used with a learner who has the language skills and to follow along, and then you can couple that with the things that actually do the heavy lifting in terms of behavior change, it's great. But I just kind of cringe a little bit when I see it used with people who don't have either the cognitive or the language skills to grasp the content of the story.
Yeah. Okay. Great question.
We have time for one more, I think.
Yeah.
We have time.
All right, Matt, you want to read? You put another one in the notes. A reflection one.
Ooh, this one's big. This could be a whole podcast unto itself.
Yeah.
All right, this is from Penny Holloway. Thank you, Penny, for writing this in. It's a big question, and again, we could have spent the entire time just going over this. All right, here it goes. I've been reflecting upon the following: is our field shifting? Is it changing? Are we moving towards compassionate care? Are we listening to autistics more? Are we moving towards trauma-assumed care, away from certain punishments, for example, electric shock, towards socially valid goals? What would be the measurement for that? It feels like the field is shifting, but is it? I've been reflecting upon what would be the measurement for that. So, excellent question. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a good one too for all of us, because kind of, I think we usually end these with a sort of like, what's coming up in the year? Like, what's next for the field? So I think this one kind of captures that idea of, all right, all these things that we've talked about in previous years, we've talked about on our shows this past year, I think will probably be topics we continue to talk about into the new year that really play into some of the fears that I think we as behavior analysts have. Not so much because any of those are things we should be scared of, but because how do we know that we're doing it enough that the average person doesn't say, oh, behavior analysis, the conversion therapy folks, isn't that what they do now? Or did this like weird misperception that seems to have become more and more prevalent in 2022. I mean, it had been before, but it just seems like it's in more places than I can remember, even as someone who's not like actively on, that many social media sites.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's some solid self-care advice right there.
Thank you. Yeah.
I spent too much time
well,
stuff.
One of us has to be. Before we run out of time, this is also a great question because it rolls in some questions that we got from listener Megan. So I just want to make sure I note that because I told her we would cover her questions too. And they were, what are the biggest controversies facing our field? What makes you nervous and excited about the future of behavior analysis, right? So all of this kind of gets wrapped up in Penny's and Megan's questions together. But Penny's asking two different things, one of which is, do we feel like there might be a shift, right? And how can, as a good behaviorist does, how can you actually measure, right? Whether there is that shift. So I think if you spend a lot of time on social media, then you do feel like that there is a shift, because the conversations that are happening on those platforms are generally more progressive, are talking about, trauma-informed practices, are bringing in a lot of discussions related to compassionate care, cultural responsiveness, listening to autistic voices. And I think that that's all great, but it is a self-selecting subset of the behavior analytic population that represents themselves on social media in that way. So attempting to determine the direction that the field at large is moving is probably more difficult. And to me, it always comes back to what the newest behavior analysts are being taught in their programs. So are these issues being covered in their programs? How are they being tackled at all? How are they being represented? And what are those new folks' views on the appropriateness of all those things I just mentioned going to be, so that as they go out into the field, are they then producing behavior change on their own? And that any of those types of changes are going to take time, and we may not really fully see the effects for a long time.
And I like to think about it as, when you look at those bigger ABA companies, are they making those shifts? Right? Because smaller behavior analytic companies, they might have an easier time to make those types of shifts. But are the bigger companies that are like, we're the best in the world, are they now taking into consideration trauma-informed care, compassionate care, cultural responsiveness, and are they making changes in their agencies? And, I do some consulting for some bigger agencies. In some places, I do see them starting to have these conversations, whereas in other companies, I have not seen a change at all. So I don't know.
And education doesn't stop after you get out of grad school, right? Yeah. So the culture of the place where you choose to work has a huge impact on how you develop as a behavior analyst as well.
Okay, so I've thought about this because that was the question that I thought that maybe I, as the clinician in the field, could think a lot about. I'm a clinician
right too now, too, Alan.
Yes, it's true. It's true. I'm not discounting other people. Just saying.
Put it out there.
I think that what I've noticed over the year, my last year, as I've practiced fully as a licensed behavior analyst in sort of the clinical setting, my education, which I graduated from my program in the end of 2019. So it's been a couple of years now. It just took me a while to get my field work done, which is a whole nother ethical thing that we can talk about, how we can do that better for new behavior analysts. I would say that there is a distinct difference in what I learned and what people who have been behavior analysts for more than 5 years have learned in terms of extinction and DRI and DRA and things like that. And that it's interesting, even just training like RBTs, it's a different approach, and incorporating more like developmental psychology knowledge. And like, this is how we deal with all children, and children of all types benefit from caring, nurturing, attentive adults. That was definitely something I felt I got a big dose of in school and working in schools. I think what we've done is draw a really good line about what's not acceptable, but we haven't yet gotten to a point where we're have clearly defined what's only acceptable. And we're all practicing in this gray area between, well, we're not unacceptable and that not enough people protest about what we're doing, but do we have a good delineation of like these practices remain and will continue to remain acceptable in our field, and we won't do anything that's less acceptable than these. And I feel we're definitely in that gray area of growth as a field.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how to answer this question, and I'm looking at the clock here. We have 6 minutes left before we have to close the lid, put the lid on this one. And I've got a lot of different thoughts. There's so many things I wanted to get into with this question, but I think what I would say is, I guess I'll just try to pick one aspect of this with regard to some of the controversies as it relates to like the JRC and CESS and things like that. I just want to put a thought out there. With one of the things that I think was missed in a lot of these discussions over this is the lack of truly getting our arms around the prevalence of individuals who exhibit life-threatening, severe, dangerous behavior. We don't know what that number is at all. And I'm not talking about the JRC in particular. I'm talking about of all the individuals out there who have severe behavioral disabilities to the extent to which they are putting their lives or other people's lives in jeopardy vis-a-vis their problem behavior. There's an interesting article in Disability Scoop that I'll send to you guys for the show notes about the number of, written by a local journalist in the Minneapolis area. And the gist of the article is that there is a ton of kids in the Minneapolis area, and this could be replicated all across the country, perhaps all across the world, who have severe behavior disorders, and they're languishing in hospitals right now, not getting access to state-of-the-art behavior analytic treatment. They're being subjected to physical restraint, probably many times mechanical restraint in terms of posy cuffs, and probably most certainly chemical restraint of one variety or another. And we don't have the foggiest idea of how many people are out there. And if we think of all the energy expended on looking at one facility, I really wish we could also turn our attention, or at least broaden our perspective. I'm not saying the JRC stuff is unimportant. Okay, don't get me wrong. But there are so many more. There are untold many times number of people out there whose quality of lives are horrendous because they have this repertoire of problem behavior that's going unaddressed. And I think that is really where the ABAIs and the APPAs and all our other kind of organizations should really direct their efforts towards. What we should have a kind of almost like, I don't know
like
what
a
the right word for is. Yeah, I'm thinking more like like a moonshot or Marshall Plan, if you will. Like I'm talking like a big effort and a big endeavor to figure out how many people are out there who need these services and what we can do. And if there is something like that ongoing, and I'm just blissfully ignorant here in my little travels in northern New England, please let me know, because I want to learn more about it for sure. But as far as I can tell, I'm not seeing any. There's not really a discussion of that. It's just shock is bad. Everyone should go to Kennedy Krieger instead. I'm being a little facetious here and again, we don't have time to really get into the nitty gritty of this. But I would just like to leave that leave people with that thought. What can we learn about the number of people out there whose quality of lives are completely compromised because they don't have access to the treatment that we know will make their lives better?
That's well said, Matt. I agree that it is very easy to get involved in very passionate arguments, and then sometimes that does lead to forgetting that there are lots of passionate arguments, there are lots of needs, and it often goes beyond just kind of very molecular questions. But we've got 2023 coming up, so we'll have plenty of time to discuss. Maybe we need to do a mid-year, given these great questions people are sending in. We'll do mid-year, end of year, start a year. I don't know. We can always do more. More talking about these issues as one of the positives of our field. There's so much more still to learn, even after all these years. Well, everyone, I know we only had a short time this year, but it was great getting a chance to sort of kind of wrap up and sum up and look back at the year with everybody here. So if you, for some reason, this was the first Behavioral Observations episode or ABA Inside Track episode you've heard, guess what? There's like hundreds more of these.
You're in luck.
You are in luck.
Yeah, it's our end of year gift to you, the listener. Hundreds of hours of conversations with us, with you, sometimes with all of us, sometimes with other guests, sometimes just with certain groups. But yes, we've got lots out there about behavior analysis, and we're going to keep learning into 2023. Anyone have plans that's enough behavior analysis? It's ukulele time. I think we're all still got more in the tank. Not this year. Okay. All right,
guys. It's good. Another fun year in review episode. Thanks so much.
Oh, thank you, Matt. And thanks, Alan, for getting to join in this year. We're very happy to have you.
Yes, thanks for inviting me.
The youth perspective from Alan.
We're in trouble if I'm the youth perspective.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Happy New Year.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.